Dear Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, I am happy to meet you for our dialogue between the Eastern and Western traditions regarding the themes that can be of topical interest for all those persons who are in search of the durable and real well-being and harmony. So today we shall explore the power of sacred knowledge for evolutionary transformation with the works of the Vedic tradition. The historical period that we witness nowadays is marked with numerous events that are real challenging at the planetary level. So never as today has the wisdom of the Vedic sages been so valuable. The Vedas are known as the humanity's oldest sacred scriptures that convey physical, metaphysical, mystical, and spiritual knowledge. By teaching the Vedic psychology at our courses at our Institute of Indo-Vedic Studies, I was really impressed how the persons with different social background, different forma mentis, different tendencies are inclined to embrace these values. And so, as we know, the great Western thinkers, writers, philosophers, psychologists probably have drawn a lot of concepts from this tradition. To name only a few, Kant, Schopenhauer, Thoreau, Emerson, Tolstoy, Jung were amazed by the richness of this tradition. I would like to start by quoting some expression of Hermann Hesse. When a delusion looks me in the eyes and all alone, I see no sun ray, I go back to Bhagavad-gītā. I find a line here and there, and I suddenly get to smile in the middle of overwhelming tragedies. Hermann Hesse. So today we can do a kind of a comparative analysis dwelling on some enlightening passages of the Bhagavad-gītā philosophy and psychology. So in 700 verses, this sacred poem celebrates the dialogue between the god Krishna and the warrior king Arjuna, who finds himself between the two armies in the holy field of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And here we can observe an interesting tendency, an interesting phenomenon. It's a kind of suspense. This moment, then Arjuna finds himself in a profound crisis, and as if the time stops, as if there is a kind of transition, a kind of sandhi between his present level of conscience and the teaching that Krishna is going to offer. So here we can face the challenge of choice, the concept of crisis. Would you like to offer some comment on some of the Bhagavad-gītā verses regarding this crisis of Arjuna?
In the Bhagavad-gītā, first chapter, we see that Arjuna prepared himself to fight. So, regarding the challenge that Arjuna was facing, I was just saying that Arjuna prepared himself to fight in the Kurukshetra war, and he mounted his chariot. His chariot driver, Krishna, who was his dear friend and the Supreme Lord himself, was with him. And he picked up his bow, he picked up his arrows. He was about to shoot arrows at his enemies. But suddenly he said, Krishna, can you please take my chariot between both the armies so that I will observe who all have gathered here to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan. So he was just requesting Krishna like this. So we can clearly see that although Arjuna confronted, he was not convinced. Right? He came to confront with Duryodhan and party, but he was not convinced at heart. His heart was filled with emotions, overwhelmed with emotions. He went in front of all the relatives. Krishna actually took the chariot between both the armies and he said, behold, Partha, here are your relatives, all the warriors. So Arjuna saw Bhishma, Drona, then Duryodhan, his sons, grandsons, grandfathers, his maternal uncles, his teachers, friends. He has seen so many people, and Arjuna became so overwhelmed with compassion and confusion. Right? This compassion was born out of his confusion also. So it's a very long narration there. Entire first chapter, at least second half of the first chapter of Bhagavad-gītā presents various confusions in the mind of Arjuna.
He is a kshatriya, as you said previously, so he is well instructed. He is aware of the dharmic consequences for the deterioration of the whole nation due to his decision. So he feels an enormous responsibility for this decision for the whole nation. But he should remember also that everything has been already decided by Krishna, and Krishna is by his side. And he should only serve him and nothing else, just to listen to Krishna. Talking in the psychological terms, it's a kind of defense mechanism, in this case rationalization. Quando a person rationalizes his choice by the arguments that they are perfect from the formal point of view, from the logical point of view, they are perfect. But there is something hidden. There is a fear to combat, a fear to create some difficulties for all his cousins, relatives, and so on. And as some Western psychologists define this, rationalization is a process that makes to accept on a rational basis what is not acceptable on an emotional level. As you've said previously, when one is unable to face his own emotions, fear, anger, confusion, one tends to find the perfect logical argumentations just to do or not to do something. And there are a lot of defense mechanisms in our everyday relationships, like displacement, like cancellation, repression, sublimation. So it's interesting to observe the decision, the initial decision of Arjuna from this point of view. And then in the second chapter, it's a kind of switch, a kind of turning point and he's considered Krishna not just a friend whom he played with when he was a child, but his spiritual master, Adi Guru, the archetypal master. And so we can observe his another kind of attention, another kind of predisposition. He's a very noble and courageous man, and he's not afraid just to battle. He's a kshatriya, so he knows all the consequences. But this changes of the quality of listening Krishna, of listening his teachings, expands his vision, so that he can ascend to upper plane, to the spiritual plane.